Greetings from Education USA Ghana. We are so happy to be here with you this evening. Education USA is the official source of information on US higher education, and we continue to be. Education USA is in more than 170 countries in the world with 550 advisors around the globe. We believe you have learned a lot since we started with our Facebook Live session. Today's session will be the last session for this year. One may ask, is that all from Education USA Ghana? No. We are bringing you more than 150 US universities and colleges to your doorstep. Join our Sub-Saharan Africa Virtual Fair on the 18th and 19th of November. Registration is in progress. We are restructuring our programs, and as a result, we'll be bringing you more interesting topics in January 2021. This evening, we are joined by one of the top schools, and that is Colgate University. Our topic for this evening is grabbing academic opportunities in uncertain times. Our guest is the Associate Dean of Admission, International Coordinator for Colgate University, Korean Diddley. We also have Kwabena Owusu-Ansah, a Ghanaian student studying biochemistry at Colgate University. Bernice Afote, Education USA Advisor at the Education USA Advising Center in Accra, US Embassy, is also here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. To our cherished viewers, please type your questions in the comment section. It will be answered right after the presentation. Corinne, I believe you are ready for us. Please start.
Excellent, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yes, my name is Corianne Deatley, and I'm Colgate's International Coordinator, but while I'm here and joined by a current Colgate student, Kwabena, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well too, and okay, share, we know that you're now studying biochemistry, but we don't know, or at least our students don't know, what else you're interested in academically and some of the other things you're involved in on campus. So go ahead and share more about yourself and we'll get started.
Hi everyone. By way of a quick introduction, my name is Kwabena Owusu-Ansah. I'm a sophomore at Colgate and I'm from Ghana. On campus, some of my activities include I'm president of the African Student Union. I'm a lab assistant in the psychology department, and I'm a theater production assistant. And I also work as a community leader, which is Colgate's version of an RA, or a hall president, as we know it in high school. In my free time, I also do stand-up comedy, and I play intramural soccer as well. Some of my academic interests are, as has already been mentioned, I'm hoping to double major in biochemistry and psychology with a minor in African studies or not. I'm at a liberal art college, so I have the freedom to decide to do that now or sometime later in my academic experience. So that's by way of a quick introduction.
Right, and it still took a few minutes to even go through all of that. So you've accomplished already so much, even just within, what can we say, it's a year and a half? I guess you haven't done finals yet, but I guess we can say a year and a half. And so knowing all of this, I guess let's start from the beginning and just have you share with these students just about when you were thinking about applying. At most schools in the US, you don't have to declare your major immediately. In fact, I mean, you can in your application. You may, when you're looking at a big research institution, you might apply to an engineering school or the School of Liberal Arts, but you don't actually have to declare your major until much later, until sophomore year. So when you were thinking about all of the potential things that you wanted to study, how did you actually narrow it down once you came to Colgate?
Part of my decision to, come to Colgate relied heavily on the kind of academic experience that I wanted for myself. And most of it, began from really understanding who I am as a person first and as a student. So as a person, I love to be in the kind of academic space where I feel like I'm seen by both my professors and other students. I feel like I'm learning from them as much as they're learning from me. And as a person, I want to feel like wherever I am seen, I can thrive and I can feel at home. So I got into a lot of, colleges, but Colgate made me feel from the start that this is a place where I can be who I am as a student first and grow as an individual. So academically, there are a ton of options for Colgate students. Me being an international student and predominantly going through a high school system where much of what I learned was about facts and figures and regurgitation, Colgate gave me the academic freedom to be who I am in the classroom. Not only pursue what I want to do, that's biochemistry and psychology, not just take those classes, but take a lot of other classes outside of these areas. And some of those classes, I go into them thinking that, what is this got to do with what I'm hoping to do in the future? But then 2 or 3 weeks in the class, I'm like, oh, I see how this is overlapping to something that I'm studying in some other class. I see how this is going to help me post-graduation. And I've gone through that system for about a year and a half now. And I look back to when I was applying to Colgate, and I can tell that I'm a different person as a human, and I'm a different kind of student now. So the academic opportunities at Colgate are varied, and they really help a person to grow individually and as a student.
Now you've made some really bold claims right there. So I'm going to make a mental note that you made the claim of just how much you've grown within this past year. And you also made the claim that with these professors on campus, and this is true of liberal arts schools in general, that you wanted to be not only seen, but you wanted them to feel like they were also learning from you. So I'm going to push you a little bit. What was an example of, even just within this past year, where you really felt that experience with one or maybe a few more professors?
So one crazy experience that I had with one of my professors was sometime last year over Thanksgiving break. I was on campus. I didn't get the chance to go back home. And then I received a very random email from a Colgate professor, Professor Yoshino, in your neuroscience department, inviting me to come spend Thanksgiving with him and his family. But the thing is, I had never taken a class with that professor before. So how he knew I was staying on campus to extend that invite, or where that idea came from for him to extend that kind of invites to me was, I think it was absurd. I didn't know him from anywhere. So when going to the house, I was quite skeptical, like, I don't know this guy, what are we going to talk about? But I left campus, if I remember correctly, at 5:30, thinking I'll be back in like an hour, but I go back after 9 because my visit to his place was so fun. I met his family. He had students who had gone through Colgate who had done majors similar to what I was doing, and him being in the neuroscience department, which kind of overlaps with the biology department where I'm studying, he was able to give me a lot of tips, professors to go see, classes to take, and things that I could look forward to towards my graduation. So I thought that was a very interesting experience, and it's not just rare to myself. Other international students at Colgate have shared similar experiences where they've had professors who they're taking classes with going out of their way to make them feel welcomed at Colgate. So we have that kind of dynamic between students and professors at Colgate, particularly between the international community and Colgate professors, where they go out of their way to make sure, understanding that we're coming from a different part of the world, having different experiences, understanding that we have needs that may be different from the regular Colgate student, and they go out of their way to help us feel welcomed on campus.
Think back to when you yourself were applying to Colgate, you were working with Education USA. What is a piece of advice that you have for students who are quite literally, I mean, this was 2 years ago, you were in their shoes. And so what is the biggest advice that you have for them?
I think off the top of my head, one of the biggest advice that I would give is please work closely with the Education USA office back home. They say that they are the official source of information, and I believe that that's true. Before this session started, I was just saying a thank you to Madam Bernice, who works in the office here in Accra. I'm going to throw a shout out to her because I'm truly grateful to her for the help that she gave me. So I think when I took my prep test, when I was done with my college applications, I thought that I was down for it. I thought I was definitely going to get to college, to get into college. But I went into the office. I talked to some of the officers, particularly Madam Bernice, and she broke my heart. She made me realize that there were parts of my application that I could improve on. That's me thinking that my application is already a big hit. She helped me point holes in my application process. And then going back home, I sat down and I was like, yeah, she's right. So I put in extra work, I put in extra effort, got my test scores better, took her advice all the way through, and now I'm here in college. So a big advice that I would give is if you haven't already started working with the Education USA office, please do so. Take their input for it, put it in your application. Please don't take their words too much to heart as I did. It might break your heart, but take the substance of what they're trying to get to you, and it's going to help you in your application process.
When you think back to your first year, I know this was quite literally a year ago, or I guess a year and a few months ago, and you're thinking about that first few weeks on campus. You yourself mentioned that professors are aware that students, depending on where they're from, they may have different questions, they may have different needs. When you think about your own transition to Colgate, and I'm thinking in general also to liberal arts schools, what was the biggest transition for you? This doesn't necessarily need to be academic because I do think they're related, but I'm curious, what was the biggest transition for you?
I'm going to admit my biggest challenge during my transition was academic, apparently. Because as I mentioned, the kind of classes that I took back home before getting into Colgate was a little bit different. The dynamics that existed between myself and my teachers, stroke professors, was a little bit different. So I had to understand that, getting on Colgate campus, when a teacher says that come to my office, they really mean that come to the office and talk to them about what you're learning in class. I wasn't used to that kind of dynamics between students and professors. So it took me a little bit of time to get used to it. And that's one of the things that I'm going to throw out there to, our audience who are looking forward to coming to study here. Professors here are like really willing to help you, like hold your hands and help you through it. I'm going to make another bold statement and say that at Colgate, professors aren't exactly professors. They act a lot more as mentors rather than professors. Like in every single class that you're going to take, the dynamics of Colgate is such that the university is a little bit, well, what most people would consider to be small, but not too small that you feel like, it's a tiny space. It's small enough where like you could get into classes with an average size of about 10, 12, 13. I think that the largest class size I've taken is about 15. And so professors know your name by the time that you get into the classroom. First, second week of class, they know your name, they're calling on you, wanting to hear your perspectives. And that's one key thing that has helped me thrive in the classroom and overcome all the academic challenges that I've faced. When I'm second guessing myself, do I have to say this? Should I give this comment in class? And then I say it, and I hear another student go like, oh, going off of what Owusu said in class. And my professor calls me to his office. I was like, wait, you said this thing in class. I've taught this class for about 10 years. No one has said this thing in class. Where is that idea coming from? And I'm looking at him like, well, yeah, I'm international. I'm from Ghana. This idea is from home. And then we talk back and forth, and I'm learning from him as much as he's learning from me. So going through that process helped me overcome a lot of the academic challenges that I used to face, being naturally reticent, not being vocal much in class. And now I get to class, literally first, second day of class, my hands are up, I'm asking questions, I'm going to office hours to see my professors. And so the structure of Colgate academics helped me overcome much of the challenges here. And I'm hoping that, as you make your way to college, particularly Colgate, I'm rooting for my university. You have similar experiences, and that you see how the dynamic of the university is going to help you overcome similar challenges.
You're hinting that you identify as an introverted student, even though in my own work with you, in my own just both, I guess I should say, through work and even just outside, you don't, that seems like you're hinting that is something that is one of those things that you've grown in the past year. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, I work with a lot of introverted students, and so what advice do you have for them in particular? Because so much of what you've already hinted at is that students need to go to office hours, they need to be vocal about where they're from and their own experiences in these liberal arts classrooms. So what advice do you have for someone who does identify as an introvert?
Um, One thing I would maybe point out is to have a little bit of willingness to go out of your way, just a little bit, that little effort to go out of your way to try something new, put yourself in a space where you naturally wouldn't put yourself into, could go a long way to opening up opportunities for you. I can share like a lot of experiences that I've had at Colgate, which speak to that light. Esther Rosebrook, who works with Alana, one of our cultural centers on campus, sends me a random email. Hey, I'm doing this research. Do you want to jump on? I jump on, share my experiences, and going off of that project, now I'm going to be able to co-author the paper that she's working on with her. And so naturally, I wouldn't be doing this session. Naturally, I wouldn't be working with the Office of Admissions as an ambassador. But because of this like willingness to try something new, go out of my way, experiment with something that I naturally wouldn't, has gone a long way to helping me feel at home at Colgate, help me find my spaces, and try things that I naturally thought I wouldn't like, which I have tried, and now it's like become my second favorite things to do. So yeah, that's what I'm going to put out. Be open-minded, have the willingness to try something new, and it might go a long way to helping you.
I think I have got 15 or so questions to follow up, but I'll try to narrow it down. On you hinted just at how casually and easy it was that Esther in Alana was able to approach you about her research. And I know that just even knowing you, psychology is one of these pieces that has kind of grown over this past year, that I knew that you've always been excited about biochemistry, but talk a little bit about how you've been able to explore multiple interests, and we can make this Colgate specific, or if you want to talk generally about what you know just from other liberal arts schools as well.
Okay. So Colgate naturally attracts two kinds of students. The kind who come to Colgate knowing exactly what they want to do from day one. I've had friends who declared their major by the end of first year. You usually do that by the end of your sophomore year, right? But I had friends who came like from day one, knew they wanted to do math, econ, declared their major, and then they were set. And then you have like other students like myself who aren't exactly undecided. We know what our interests are. We are pursuing our interests, but then we're open to learning new things. And so most of the classes I have taken are, hardcore science classes, the bios, the chem, but then I've also taken other classes where don't necessarily fall into the same category, classes in the philosophy department, the religion department, and also Colgate's core curriculum, other classes in challenges of modernity, uh, legacies and stuff like that. And so looking back from my first class here to now, I have taken a lot of classes where off the top of my head, I'm like, no, this is like too strange or too different. But then today I sit back and I can see how taking Black diaspora falls into the core Africa classes that I'm taking, falls into the public health in Africa class that I'm going to be taking next semester. And seeing that parting has helped me a lot to like find threads in what is going to be my career path post graduation.
What do you see as the value of pursuing these different types of fields almost all at the same time?
Corey, can you ask that question again? I think I didn't.
Yeah, I got a flash that my internet was a little fishy. So yes, when you think about your own experience just in these classes, if you were to pitch this to students who are just thinking about big universities, what is the value of being able to explore each of these at the same time? You've hinted at it, but I don't think you've quite pitched it yet.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this question keeping in mind that every student is different and what we look forward to in our academics is different. So if you are the kind of student who would, like to sneak into class late, sit at the back of the class, not contribute, walk out, get your grades, Colgate might not be for you. Because at Colgate, class sizes are small, professors know you. They invite you to their office hours. They really want to work with you, know what your passions are, know how they can help you. in and outside of the classroom. And then you're able to form bonds with other students and professors that go a long way to help you academically. Colgate has one of the best alumni networks in the country, and you hear these things with like stories that other people share, where like a random Colgate student goes to a random football event, and then some Colgate alumni working in a radio station employs them. Some Colgate student meets someone from somewhere, and then it's so fun and it's so nice, and it's something that I'm looking forward to personally. When you arrive at Colgate, you see that the community is close and it's so tight. When you walk into a classroom, first day of class, you can notice at least one or two people that you know or have met in some other space on campus, keeping in mind that that also means there's about 10 people that you don't know that you have the chance to meet. So it's so small that you can walk into a class and identify people you know. And it's also so big that there's a ton of other people that you don't know. And I think that's a good thing for us, particularly being international students, to like feel that comfort, see people that you know when you go into classroom and be able to relate with other people. Someone that you could have to tell you that, hey, there's a deadline coming up, let's go work on an assignment together and something like that. So yeah, I'm going to pitch that a lot to you. If you need that kind of community vibe in your academics in college, if you need to have that kind of relationship between you and your professors, you really need to consider coming to a place like Colgate University.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up. I know that I asked the question, but I'm so glad that I guess what I appreciate is that at liberal arts schools, and students know this, that Colgate, I think, does this exceptionally well, because just about 2/3 of all of our professors live in the town and the area, and we have this small town. So these people really are a part of your community. But this is true of liberal arts schools, that close relationship with professors. There's an expectation that you are also your own advocate, and there is support for you along all of those ways in terms of just narrowing down what you want to do. And we haven't even touched yet upon all the specific resources for international students at Colgate. And maybe this is actually the place where we actually transition and talk about some of that. But know that and I guess I'll finish my thought here, that when you come to campus, there's a whole office to support you in terms of narrowing down your major, in terms of just helping you with determining, okay, if I select this major, how might that impact the OPT that I qualify for? And how might this impact what I can do within my visa? And all of those tough questions, there's truly an office to support you with that, and that you're not anonymous at these schools. And so there's, at the same time that there's expectations on you, there's also support for you as well. Okay, I've been talking for quite a bit, but I wanted to make a point to get that thought out. So thinking even just, I guess my last question specifically about your academic experience already so far is this psychology interest that you have. You haven't yet declared it as a major, and you're already doing research in it. How easy is it to secure research at Colgate? And then I can add in just about liberal arts schools in general.
Yeah, so that will take us back to like the discussion about, class sizes, how it's easy for you to be seen in classroom, how it's easy for other students to see you. I feel like Colgate is a kind of place where opportunities are thrown at you, and then you don't necessarily have to go looking for them. And I'll put this answer in context. So when I got into Colgate, I wrote an essay for my academic advisor. Every freshman Colgate student is given an academic advisor. So I wrote an essay to my academic advisor, talking about my interest. And within that essay, she picked on the fact that I had interest in working in cancer biology research. And then we had a cancer biology researcher on campus, Professor Hagos, in the biology department, one of the best cancer researchers in the country. And literally in my first meeting with my academic advisor, she's like, oh, I'm very forgetful. Here's Professor Hagos's card. Take his card, call him and talk to him right after this meeting. And this is my first meeting with her. I had not taken any biology classes yet, and already she was putting me in contact with people who are doing research in areas where I have interest in. And so that just gives you a sense of how much opportunities there are at Colgate for international students and Colgate students in general. But then thinking about the size of international students on campus and how maybe it's a lot easier for international students to get lost at Colgate. For me to be able to share this kind of experience that I've had, even though I've been on campus for just about a year and a half, the number of opportunities that have been thrown at me, it just gives you a sense of like the kind of university that Colgate is. And again, I'm going to pitch it to you amongst all other liberal arts universities, because this is where I can speak the most to. Yeah.
When you think about those, I guess what I'll do is I'll bring this back to you thinking about, oh geez, there's three questions that I have right in my head. So I'll start with, as you just said, coming to campus and the international student community. Let's take a step back and even just describe Colgate. You yourself did not visit Colgate until you were quite literally moving in. So how would you describe Colgate to someone who has not visited campus yet?
Okay. So I'm pretty sure even if you haven't visited Colgate yet, you have seen one brochure, been to the website, and all. You just know how beautiful the university is. So I'll just skip past that. It looks a lot prettier in person than it does on the brochures and on the website. I'm going to admit to that. But then one thing that also helps, in my description of Colgate is where Colgate is located, which is Hamilton itself. So it's in a little town. I'm saying little because as compared to other colleges, which are like in big cities, Colgate is in a little town about 5 hours away from New York City. Please keep that in mind. Colgate is not in New York City, about 5 hours away from New York City. And the town has almost everything that we would need as a university and as a college student. So there's a restaurant close by. There are cafes. There's a movie theater. There's an art center. That we have farmers markets where like most Colgate students go into town on Saturday mornings to get like fresh fruits and vegetables from local farms. And most importantly, there's an African market, which is like 1 hour away from Colgate campus in Syracuse. In a typical year, there's a bus that gets us from, on Saturdays, that gets us from campus to the African market. I think it runs on Saturdays and Sundays, and we don't get to pay for that. So if you are a Ghanaian student coming to Colgate, please keep that in mind. We have the African market here. It's where myself and most other African students, patronize when we want to cook something from home, or when we're having our programs in the African Student Unions. Our number one, shopping center is that. So that's just a sense about like where Colgate is located and what we have close to us, particularly in relation to the needs of international students from Africa.
I want to touch base on, you've talked about the events that you've planned and the food involved in it. And so I know students are interested in that. But you first just said that when you came, you just the idea of you even getting involved and your friends, it sounds like several of your friends are international students. How would you, okay, 3 words to describe the international student community at Colgate?
Vibrant, close, and safe.
Why?
I'm picking these words because amongst the international community, we look out for each other. And I feel like they have my back as much as I have theirs, both like with the African Student Union and by extension other international students as well. So we look out for each other because, a lot of things are new to us. So you talk to an international student, they're like, oh, hey, you need to take this class. It's an easy A class. Oh, you need to go talk to this professor. They really know a lot about international students and our experiences. They're a good resource to you. Oh, I got an invite from this professor asking me to come with another student. I want to go with you. And so just having these group of people on campus to like support you from like freshman year through classes that you're going to take, social spaces that you can get into, have been like a good support system for me. Someone just recommended take Model African Union. It's a 0.5 credit. It's an easy. It helps boost your GPA. Just getting like tiny pieces of information that you may not get in the larger Colgate community, which are relevant to international students, has been like a good thing for me here at Colgate so far. Yeah.
That actually, so then my next question was going to be about getting involved on campus. You have listed an impressive amount of things, and I'm sure that you yourself, when you were applying to colleges, did not see yourself being involved in each one of these things. So talk a little bit about the process, because I know that it sounds like a lot, but I imagine, or you know what, I shouldn't assume anything. Talk about the process of joining some of these clubs, and I'll end my question there.
Yeah. So some of my activities, as I said, were recommended by friends that I made on campus. I think the first day that I got to campus, there was like a large group of people who had volunteered to welcome students. And so the person who helped me, like, no, two people who helped me get my luggages in my room and stuff like that, we were talking, they were like, I told them I'm from Ghana. They were like, oh, there's about 2 Ghanaian students on campus that we know. Go talk to Josiah, go talk to Malobi, go talk to Essie. And so, like, on my first day of coming to campus, I had a profile of all students who were from Ghana and by extension who were from Africa. And so some of these people became my close friends. They recommended some activities that they were in. And so that is how, like, I got into some of the activities that I'm into on campus. But on the other hand, there's also a huge fair that occurs during freshman orientation where all clubs and organizations on campus line up on the academic quad and then, like, pitch their groups to you and try to gauge your interest in joining them. So I was at a couple of those fairs, and then I picked up on some things that I might be interested in doing: soccer, rock climbing, stand-up comedy, and so that was how I was able to get into those organizations as well. But it primarily started from me finding my family in the African Student Union, finding other Ghanaian students on campus actually, and then taking it off from there. So I'm going to pitch Colgate again here to you, listening to me, specifically if you are a student from Ghana coming to campus. You already have a family of, like, as it stands, I think you have a family of about 4. There's myself, there are other students who are like dual citizens also from Ghana who make up the African Student Union, and about 6 other students from Africa who are in the African Student Union. So you have a primary family coming to Colgate that you don't really have to worry much about this, like finding your space or getting social on campus, because we are here for you. I'm here to support you as president of the African Student Union. So I'm pitching Colgate to you again in that light.
Now, you're a sophomore and you're the president of African Student Union. What is leadership like at Colgate?
It's an interesting dynamic being like being a student leader on campus, because there are a lot of things that you can do, a lot of ideas that you can pursue on campus. So for the African Student Union, for instance, every year we organize our fashion shows. We get a lot of funding to do those fashion shows. We get people from different racial backgrounds coming to them, professors actually showing up to our annual fashion shows. So in terms of leadership, we are able to organize activities that are distinctly African. Thanksgiving break, New Year's Eve, we meet together as a group, cook, just talk, share experiences, welcome a freshman group together and stuff like that. So that's it for like leadership on campus with respect to being an African student and knowing that I'm talking to prospective students from Ghana. It's a lot easier for you to find activities. It's a lot easier for you to grow in them to become leaders. Like when I got to campus, I think in my second semester, I was vice president of the African Student Union, which helped because it opened up an area of opportunities for me and other clubs and organizations whom we were doing programs with, for me to be able to find other spaces to grow into. So yeah.
What is something we haven't yet talked about that you want to share with students?
I think my last pitch is going to be, we haven't talked about, and I don't know if you were going to talk about it, but keeping in mind, everything that's going on in the world so far in terms of COVID and how, like, it has delayed or something, like changed the world. We don't know how long it's going to stay for. And so if you are a student who is concerned about that, like going to a place where you're worried about the kind of support that is there for you, keeping in mind everything that's happening in the world right now, this is also a point where I'm going to pitch Colgate 100% to you. The university invested about $4.5 million to enable, I think the number has gone way up by this point, to enable students to come back to campus. And this is keeping in mind that international students are in such a position where they may not have the opportunity to go back home. So the university invited all of us back home, did an entire university-wide testing for about, I think that was about 3 or 4 times over a period of 2 months, gradually opened up in gates. And being an international student, it's not as if like the testing kits and stuff like that were given to like US citizens or domestic students. I currently have a testing kit. It's right here with me. So yeah, I got a lot of support in terms of that. Had the chance to come back to campus, had the chance to get tested 2, 3, 4 times back and forth. And I feel like, I am safe on campus right now. I think the last time I checked, there was only one Colgate student currently in quarantine with 4 others in isolation with them. So as it stands, as compared to other universities, Colgate has done a lot for us this year to take that burden of being international, having family worry about where you're standing in terms of the COVID situation and stuff like that. So I'm going to pitch Colgate in that light, since we don't know how long this is going to be around for. If you're looking at a university, if you're looking at a university to apply to, and you're worried about situations around COVID, please consider coming to Colgate. And I'm almost sure and can guarantee that there's a lot of support for you in terms of like health services. So yeah.
Yes, in terms of health services and even in the Office of International Student Services, I'm so glad that you brought all of this up, because this is something that is very important to our community. From the very beginning in March, students, when the pandemic was declared a pandemic and Colgate determined that they couldn't keep every student on campus, they did allow students to opt to stay on campus completely for free. Meals were included, and classes, you could stay and you could resume classes from your dorm. And so many of our international students did choose to take that option. There were also students that chose to stay on campus through the summer as well, too. Even before Colgate knew and made the determination that it was safe to reopen in the fall, that was something that was important to our community. And so this is going to continue to be something that is important to us. And so as we prepare to reopen next semester, because that is the plan, that the execution of this semester, we still are going week by week and monitoring, and you can find this on our website and see where we are at in terms of reopening, because of course reopening is not back to normal. Reopening is still reopening with restrictions, but it is something that while we are still looking at everything week by week, the fact that we have been able to support our students on campus for this long means that we felt it was safe to reopen in the spring. And so this is something that we are being mindful of our international student community and their needs too, as we're looking ahead as well. We haven't really talked about Kira and Makiko and the Office of International Student Services. I know we've kind of danced around it, but know that that is something that is also important to they are an important part of our international student community, because they are the ones, I mean, I've heard students even call them our two mothers, because they know everything that you do on campus. Kira is every international student's administrative dean, so she helps you determine your major. She's the one, when I said before, that helps walk you through how a major might impact your OPT. That is what happened. I mean, she knows everything. Talk about people. I don't know how you sleep at night. I don't know how they sleep at night either, between everything that they do on campus. Just thinking about their support. I know it's only been 1 year, but is there something that you'd want to share too about just how they supported you, or have you always been on top of everything that you've been doing all throughout the year?
I haven't. I wish I could say I have, but I haven't. That's why I appreciate having that support system there for me. Speaking about Kira and Makiko, Kira specifically because she's my administrative dean. Now, you may not feel it now, but being an international student in the States comes with a lot of responsibilities. And change that you may start to feel early. So having Kira, Makiko always being there like, oh, hey, we've been here for a long time. These are the kinds of experiences that students face in about the first month. Be on the lookout for this. Always like letting you know what could potentially happen socially and academically was a big thing for me. It helped me like avoid a lot of trouble yeah, a lot of trouble that I could have gotten into, both academically and socially on campus, helped me put a lot of things in perspective. And this kind of support system was available to me even before getting to campus. Because I remember I ran into a challenge with my immigration documents. Kira made a 5-hour trip from Colgate to New York City to help me sort all these things out. And then she drove back to campus. And when she told me that that's the kind of trouble that she had to go through, I was like, wait, Kira, you should have just, I felt so bad, but you could just see how they're willing to go out of their way to support us. When people call them mothers that we have on campus, they literally act as our mothers and consider us to be their children. So away from like having that friend group, that social circle with international students, just having that adult parent figure in Kira Makiko, always looking through us, trying to sort things out, make sure that everyone is in a good standing academically and socially, is a big thing for us. So yeah, we appreciate them a lot. At least I can speak for myself and say I appreciate that office immensely. Yeah.
I'm gonna, I imagine, and we're just about the time where I think we're gonna open all of this up to questions from students directly. And I think that a natural question that students will ask, and so I'll ask it now, is you just said that being an international student in the US comes with responsibility. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that responsibility is and what students should prepare for?
Yeah, so it comes with a lot of responsibility in the sense that I'm going to talk about this both in the class and outside of the classroom. In the classroom, much of the things that I was learning was new, to be honest. Even though some were like familiar, my chem classes, my bio classes, a lot similar to classes I'd taken already. Some were new and somewhat challenging for me. Thinking about concepts that are not particularly native to home. We talk about like old economic systems, like the old structure of like the United States, the history of it, and the history of like other parts of the world that I'm not open to. So I had to understand that, you know, this is new. I had to push myself a little bit in those classes. So it comes with that responsibility of understanding that, you know, this is a new place, this is a new academic environment, and that you're going to have to do something a little bit different from what you used to. If like your exams in the past were a lot more regurgitation of facts and figures, now your exams are going to be like application of what you've learned, and like doing a lot more study outside of the classroom than you would back home. So yeah, just feeling that sense of responsibility, you know, going to class, where in my previous classes I could just sit down, watch my professors teach their summaries up, and then they go. At Colgate, it's mostly the heavily discussion based. This person is talking, that person is talking, going off of this person's points after that person's point. And so you are expected to speak up, and feeling that sense of responsibility and then actually changing the way that you used to do things to suit that a little bit helps a lot. I mean, again, I'm saying this knowing that all international students are not the same, but also keeping in mind that I'm talking to people from my home country who may or may not have experiences similar to what I had, And also socially, it also comes with the responsibility of um, finding your space, because outside of the classroom, you spend a lot more time in the social space than you do in the classroom. Saying that, I'm also going to stop here and pitch Colgate further to you, because the structure of the university, from the residential system to the social system, makes it a lot easier for you to immerse yourself, you know, in the social environment. And I'm just going to throw this out quickly. When you get into Colgate, your residential housing, it's based on what Colgate calls the commons system. So all resident buildings are put into what Colgate calls the commons. It's like a larger community of like all Colgate resident buildings. Now, based on that selection, you get to take a class called your first year seminar. And the people who are going to be in your first year seminar, people who are going to be from your resident buildings, and from your commons by extension. I was lucky enough to have my roommate in my first year seminar class. So getting to campus and not knowing anyone and just having my roommate in the same classroom with me, meeting his friends, you know, seeing people I'm sharing classes with on my floor. We could meet together over the weekend and work on an assignment, work on a paper and stuff like that. It made that social burden of like coming to a new country, coming to a new place, not knowing a lot of people, made it extremely easy for me. But then I had to keep in mind that, and absorb the responsibility of learning other people's culture, to be able to relate to them, have conversations with them, learn about where they're coming from, and be able to thrive as a community. So it has some kind of responsibilities that you're going to have to take up on yourself, and there are other sides too that the university has taken up on itself to enable you to be able to balance the two. So yeah.
Let's end it there. I mean, you just pitched Colgate. Thank you for taking this time today. I so appreciate it. I know that it was really, I know that I picked your brain quite a bit on these questions. And so thank you for joining us. Margaret, if you would like to come back and start monitoring the Q&A, I think I think we're ready.
Wow. I'm really enjoying this session. If you just joined us, you're watching Education USA Ghana Facebook Live session. We are on this platform with Korean Ditley, the Associate Dean of Admission, International Coordinator for Colgate University. And we have Kwabena Owusu-Ansah, a Ghanaian student studying at Colgate University. My name is Margaret Nyako. I'm also the Education USA advisor based at Education USA Kumasi. Before we start with our question and answer session, let me quickly cross over to Education USA. Mrs. Afote, are you there?
Yes, madam.
Could you let us know more about Education USA Sub-Saharan Africa Virtual Fair? We want to know more.
Okay, great. If you permit me, I would like to share my screen and show a flyer.
Please go ahead.
Okay. It's showing some part of mine. Okay. I hope you can see my screen.
Sure, we can.
Okay, so as Margaret said, we are the official source of education. Official source of information on US higher education. And in trying to get the word out, whether there's COVID or not, we have found a way to still reach out to you with a virtual fair, and this will cover or consist of more than 150 US universities and colleges. That's very big, because when we had the first regional fair last year, we had about 50 schools. So this is like incredible. Make sure you are looking on the screen right now. If you are watching the video later, please pick the details. The fair is on November 18 and November 19. If you want to pursue undergraduate study, your date is November 18, Wednesday. So a week from next Wednesday, and it will be from 12 to 4 p.m. You have the details on here to be able to register. You need to register to be able to participate. If you do not register by or before November 14, you probably will not have a chance to interact with these schools. So please make a note. And then for those who are looking at opportunities to pursue graduate studies, your date is the 19th. We are separating the men from the boys, okay? So graduate school, your date is 19th. Same registration link. And you also have to register on or before 14th of November. So please pay attention to this. It's very important to us. You heard a testimony about what Education USA can do with you and for you. But we also feel that it's important for you to have a good exposition as to what kinds of institutions there are, so that you don't just run with one school that you got online. You will meet a lot of these to be able to choose. I was just listening to Kwabena, and I'm so proud the way he's answering his questions. You can really tell that he's happy where he is. So we want you to also be like him in the future. when you have an opportunity to talk about your school so that you can say all that there is. So make a date with us, November 18 and November 19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Afote. Can you please stop sharing your screen so that we can see Korean and then Kwabena? All right, so Korean, I come back to you with questions. My first question is, will the results of the US elections have any effect on international students? One of my students wants to know.
We are not planning to make any changes to our applications based on the outcome of the election. Every year, we are trying to bring the best and brightest students to Colgate. And so we are not factoring in there. Well, I guess let me say, we are very much keeping in mind that there are students that we admitted last year who had to choose to do remote learning because they weren't able to actually get to campus due to visa delays. That's not a reason not to admit a student. We are still excited that those students are a part of the Colgate community and they are still an active member as well too, because in this pandemic, we have a lot of students who are doing remote learning and even professors who opted to do remote learning based on their own safety concerns. So all of this being said, we are not planning on changing any of our admission practices for international students this year, regardless of the outcome of the election. That's a very good question.
Thank you very much. So the next question is Colgate a test optional institution?
Yes, test optional, SAT, ACT, you do not have to submit them. For the next 3 years, Colgate is going to be test optional. Another good question.
And does Colgate have application fee waiver for international students?
It's actually free for international students to apply. When you're filling out your application, it's going to automatically, you'll be asked your citizenship, and based on what you put there, it's all an algorithm. It will automatically be waived when you apply.
That's great. So Kwabena, this question comes to you. One of the students is saying that the student seems to be doing a lot at Colgate. I want to ask him, what made him choose Colgate?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, particularly for international students, because we're not able to take a tour. We're not able to visit campus before to know what the dynamics on campus really is. And much of what you're going to perceive about the university is going to be online from YouTube videos, from brochures and stuff like that. But speaking to my personal experience, and I think I touched on it just a little bit, one thing that I think is very important for us international students is to really understand the kind of person you are and where you're going to thrive at. So even though a lot of the things you're going to be reading online are going to be things that you haven't experienced yet, you are going to be able to match your personal profile to the college profile that is being presented to you and know that this is the kind of place you're going to be able to thrive at or not. So I did the same thing through my selection. I sat down with my counselors. We had a list of colleges that we went through, did extensive research on each of the schools that I had on my list. And based on my research, I was able to see that, okay, this school has this opportunity available at the college. This one does not have that. Actually, I do need this, so I'm not taking this college. I'm not considering this college. So I did go through that process back and forth for about a month. It might be a lot shorter for you. I think it was actually over a month, just doing extensive research on the colleges to be able to find a place where I feel like I can be at home. And that extensive work that I put in there has paid off big time for me, because I feel at home at Colgate. I feel like this is a place where I'm able to thrive as a student and as a person. So I'm going to advise that you do that a lot. Work, again, as I mentioned, work with EducationUSA office, do your research, pay attention to things that speak to you when you find universities online. And these things are going to manifest when you get to the campus in person.
Okay, so Corinne, I come back to you. So does Colgate University offer full scholarships to international students?
We do, but let me first say that, so when I say we do, what I mean is that at Colgate, we match 100% of demonstrated financial need. If you don't know that term already, that is a term that absolutely you should take a look at other schools' websites to see if they do that. Colgate, when we say match 100% of demonstrated need, what we do is we ask every international student, if they're applying for financial aid, to submit the CSS profile. If submitting that is a financial burden for you and your family, we do have fee waiver codes, but a limited amount. So work with us directly, or counselors, you can also reach out to me directly as well too. But knowing all of this, you're going to need to submit the CSS profile. It asks for a lot of information from your family. It takes quite a bit of time to fill out, but from there, we determine how much your family can afford to pay, and we match that amount 100%. So that does mean that there are some international students who are receiving full financial aid packages from Colgate based on the amount that they submitted in that CSS profile.
Thank you very much. So talking about the CSS profile, do you offer waivers for the CSS profile?
Yes, we do have a limited amount, and that can, if you're working with your counselors can reach out to us directly, or you can work directly with me. I'm one of the people who is monitoring the flow of them that comes in. So absolutely reach out to me directly if submitting the CSS profile is a financial burden for you.
Okay, so what kind of students do Colgate look to admit?
We want to see that you're challenging yourself academically and outside of the classroom. And I know that that sounds so broad. I'm aware that that sounds like, well, of course I'm doing that. And so we know that at Colgate, there is often we want to see when you had the chance to perform in your classes, what were you excited about? And so we want to learn more about your academic interests and your interests outside of the classroom. And we also know that you might not, as you heard earlier, you might not know yet what you want to study. And so we're interested in just how you are as a student in the classroom. We're looking for students who are both the students who lead a lot of the classroom discussions and are the first ones to raise their hand. And we also are excited about introverted students who are the ones who actually save the class from debating too much because of the one thing that they say that is so important, steers the conversation elsewhere. We're looking for great writers. We're looking for students who are the ones that the professors and teachers are so excited to read what they're writing. So there is no check of I need to be this type of student. I need to be involved in this type of activities. And we also are going ahead into this COVID pandemic, or I guess I should say into this next application cycle, knowing that there's a very high likelihood that your academic experience was also not what you expected it to be last year, and you had to pivot accordingly. And your activities outside of the classroom or the way that you supported your family was not what you expected to do. And so we are very much interested in how, even just in this pandemic, how you were as a student, and if there were things that you did in particular to just keep yourself healthy. And that's something that's going to be important to us too. And so when we review applications, we see all applications in the context of the applicant pool. And so it is not a question of just a checkbox. My best piece of advice is to keep doing what you're doing, keep staying healthy, and pursue your interest in a way that you can during this time that we know is very unpredictable.
Thank you. So one of my students would want to know, and it reads, will you advise students to change their career goals due to this current uncertain time?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question. If you're not yet sure what you want to do, I think you should be talking to your EducationUSA counselors. You should be talking to your family. There are absolutely studying in the US right now, studying at a liberal arts school compared to a much bigger school. Those are all very different experiences, and it's important to be asking, I guess at this time, the questions that you should be asking yourself is, what do I know that I want to do? And if I'm not yet sure, what are the multiple things, and what are some things that are really important to me? And then where am I flexible? Because similarly, when I work with students, very, very few students are just looking at liberal arts colleges in the US, or they're just looking at major, huge universities in the US. Most of the students that I work with are not just applying to schools in the US, they're applying to schools elsewhere. They're applying to big schools and small schools because they can see themselves at multiple different schools. That's not a bad thing. And at Colgate, I know that we do have a very strong alumni network in terms of just supporting students if they want to return to their home country or if they want to stay in the US. That option is available to both of those types of students. But when you're thinking about changing career goals, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question, but you should keep asking that question, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Corinne. Mrs. Afote, I come back to you. Are you ready for the question? So is Education USA Ghana Facebook Live session going off completely, or there is something going on? Can you please enlighten us?
Okay, thank you. We're not going off completely as in we're stopping, but we're looking at restructuring it. I have enjoyed today's session. And I think that before now, we've just been doing the same thing. We want to revamp it and make it more exciting so that every week we know you've stayed with us all through. We want you to continue to stay with us. So we're looking at ways to, bring something more exciting to you. So stay tuned for next year. We will be back and we will let you know what we have in store for you. So
Thank
don't
you very
worry.
much.
But I think the college fair coming up will make up somewhat, because every week we feature one school. Now you're going to talk to more than 150 schools. Ooh.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mrs. Afote. Corinne, do you have anything to say to my students, your final words?
Just thank you again. Your time is also precious. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let us know if we can be of any help.
Thank you, Corinne and Kwabena, for the wonderful presentation. We are so grateful for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on our Facebook Live session. To our cherished viewers, we say Ayiko for spending your precious time with us this evening. Please don't forget to join our Sub-Saharan Africa Fair on the 18th and 19th of November 2020. Remember that we are bringing you more than 150 universities and colleges to your doorstep. Registration is in progress. Follow us on all our Facebook pages for further details. Please keep safe. Have a good evening.